Hi everyone, thank you for joining us today for ProfNet's Hangout on Air, where we'll be discussing how to market your event. My name is Polina Opelbaum, and I'm a Community Services Specialist at PR Newswire's ProfNet. We have a wonderful guest joining us today, Andy Crescodino, and we hope to have Riva Lazansky joining us a little bit later. Unfortunately, she's experiencing a little bit of a technical difficulty. Before we begin, I just wanted to remind everyone that if you have any comments or questions, so please tweet us using the hashtag ProfNetHangout. All right, let's get started. Andy, thank you so much for being here with us today.
My pleasure. Excited to be here.
If you can begin by telling us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I've been doing web design, or I started a web design company in January of 2000, and this version of this company in April of 2001. And my role was always kind of the designer, and then later it became sort of the marketer. I guess companies often have two main people, the hacker and the hustler. I was kind of the hustler. So it was my job to stir up demand and to, connect us to the world and, find leads and close deals and be in charge of all the sales and marketing stuff. So since 2007, I've been a content marketer. And we have done lots of blogging, search engine optimization, email marketing, social media, analytics, and of course, live events.
Great. Thank you so much.
Sure.
I'd like to start by talking about when is a good time for an organization to put together an event? Is it when they're doing a product launch, or perhaps when they want to discuss some type of expertise?
Yeah, it's there's a famous quote among social media marketers that says, "Build your army before you need it," because it's often too late to put together an audience and to find evangelists and to grow the influencers and all the connections that you need to be successful. If you wait until you need those sales or that community, so I don't think there's ever a time when it's too early. Even if I wasn't even sure yet what my company was going to have for a product or service, as soon as I knew the industry, I would probably start attending events, if not holding my own events. It's so important, and it's such a powerful way to connect with people that I don't think there's ever a time when it's too early. The sooner you start, the sooner you have your audience, and whatever you do and whenever you do it. It's when the demand of your target audience connects with the value of your product or service that you're successful. So do it now.
That definitely makes a lot of sense. And how can an event help an organization achieve their goals?
Sure. So obviously, if your target audience is able to come to your events and you are a business that is based on a certain geography, that's usually true. So if you're if you're a spa, you can do events and have them in your spa, and the people that come to your events might be prospects. That's great. But even if your target audience is not necessarily all in one place or able to come to your events, there's still a huge value in it, because it's a great way to connect with influencers, bloggers, journalists, sources. It's a way to build up relevance among the people that might cover you, that might mention you, link to you, follow you, share you. We all have kind of two target audiences: the people who might buy from us, and also the people who can be champions for our message through all those other channels, right? People who have already built up that target audience. So we all have kind of a secret audience of bloggers, and I think that no matter what, for everybody, events can be effective at connecting with that second audience, if not both.
And when an organization decides to put together an event, is there any type of platform that you recommend they use, such as maybe Eventbrite or another one?
Yeah. If you have the money and if you're a big organization, there's a lot of benefits to building the event registration tools on your own site. It's easier to measure effectiveness using analytics. You get total control over the messaging. The person's never leaving your site. We have a saying in content marketing: where there's traffic, there's hope. If a visitor leaves your website and goes to Eventbrite or a third-party registration tool, you've lost a little bit of control over their experience. On the other hand, for 90% of businesses, it is really, really convenient to use a third-party service, because they've already done a really good job of designing those landing pages. They've already done a really nice job of managing the e-commerce for you. You know, the location-based stuff, the sign-up stuff, all of the upsells, the countdown, the different levels of registration, the promo codes. Eventbrite and similar tools do a nice job of that. So Reva made it. So anyway, I recommend it. Yeah, so use a third-party tool if necessary. I think that they do so many things so well. I still use Eventbrite for a lot of my events, but I suppose it would depend case by case. Hi, Reva.
We have Reva joining us. Thank you very much. We were just discussing when an organization puts together an event, what type of platform should they use, and what would you recommend, Reva?
I think she's muted.
Oh.
Yeah, thank you. So, you mean to get the word out, to spread the word about the event? How to do that?
Right. So, should they maybe put it on their website, or is there another location that you?
Well, first of all, I think you have to find out where most of your customers, potential clients are, and then I would sort of run the whole gamut. I would put it on your website. Andy's right, Eventbrite. Everybody I know uses Eventbrite to get that up, to keep people up to date. I would really use social media. Every social media that you have, I'm not saying to be a pest, but you should, you know, use Twitter to drive people to your website. Use Google+, use Facebook to talk about it and to drive people to the sign-up page.
That's great. Thank you so much, Reva. And then when you decide you have a topic, is there any type of wording that you should be using? Are there buzzwords? Andy?
Well, in marketing in general, it's really, really important that we use the words that our audience would use themselves, the words that connect with their own desires and emotions and needs. So anyone who uses industry jargon or, you know, inside baseball, their own lingo to do any kind of marketing, I mean, they're going to have a big disadvantage. It's going to be a lot harder for them to get traction that way. So empathy is always the best web marketing skill. You know, the better you are at empathy, the more successful you'll be at marketing. That said, we use those words in different places to different effect. If you, the more research-based words are going to get traction in search engine optimization. Words with high emotional content tend to get better traction within social media. So, you know, it's really just most important to say to use the words our audience would use natural language. But if the event is about how to solve a big problem that they have, you know, a longer phrase like how to do X, Y, and Z might be good for search. If it's about, you know, how to do great at something, a phrase like, you know, how to kill it at social media might be a better phrase for for Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn.
Can I add something, Paulina?
Oh, yes, please.
So I also think it's really important to address, to make people, to use the word you and not use they, and not like if you were doing an event for entrepreneurs, don't say how entrepreneurs can do that better. It's how you can do it better. You want to kind of establish a very kind of intimate relationship between your company and their company and them. And so it's as if you're going to invite them to this event so they can benefit. It's always about selling the benefits to them. It's people try to you know, with events, it's about selling your benefits. Nobody cares about your benefits. It's about how it's going to benefit that person getting that invitation.
I will second that motion. I completely agree with what Reva said. The best calls to action, I mean, the best headlines, all these things, you is one of the most powerful words in marketing for sure. I have a theory, though, and I don't have a lot of data for this. If the button that the person clicks to take action, that might be a place to use first-person language, like sign me up or reserve my spot. I think that you is perfect everywhere, except maybe on that button or link. I really don't have data for this, but I want to test it somehow. I think that first-person language is, it's a metaphor for what's happening when I click. So I've been trying that first-person language only in that place, and I think it works pretty well.
Now, Once you have the wording and you have the language for your topic, what kind of speakers should you bring in?
The best you can find. Your job is to find great speakers. That's the point of the event director. That said, I see a lot of people will compromise and choose speakers based on who's going to sell tickets. You know, you might get a second-class teacher because they are first-class brand, and a lot of people will come just to see that brand. I think it's a fine line that a lot of event directors walk. I think that people are tempted to let their sponsors speak. In fact, that's often part of a sponsorship package. But you have to honor the trust of your attendees and find people that are just going to do an amazing job at giving value to those who paid to come. Riva, what do you think?
I agree with you. I think sometimes if you're in that sponsorship rut, you know, you can give them like 3 minutes to say thank you to everybody and then get them off. Their job is not to inform. It's like a commercial message. You're watching an hour program. You'll tolerate 2 minutes of commercials, but that's about it. So for the sponsor, you get them on and get them off. If you're trying to put together an informational panel, let's say, or you want to get a point across about a topic and it's hard for you to, maybe you don't have the budget to afford the best in class, maybe a panel is easier because even though you're getting 3 lesser people than this huge name in the industry, if you don't have them up there trying to wow everybody and have them more of a give and a take in a question and answer period, you can get a lot out of it that way, particularly, and I think this is really important, and a lot of people don't do it, allow the audience to ask questions. You know, they might be shy at first, but I think this is really important. I give a lot of presentations, and I always say to people, interrupt me. Don't wait till the end, because we can think we're prepared and know what people want to hear, but you don't really know it until they tell you, wait, what about this? And so I think that part's really important, to allow some kind of back and forth, a lot of back and forth in how you set it up.
I agree. The more interactive, the better. I mean, people, you know, every great piece of marketing is a dialogue, not a monologue. It should be people should feel like they're contributing. Ideally, you know, it's not just people standing up and doing 45-minute presentations with 5 minutes of Q&A, one after the other. If the event is of any size, I mean, it'd be fun to do sessions that, you know, throw a panel in there, or throw a workshop in there, or you know, just have a space in the event that's strictly for networking or for meeting people, or, you know, you want to kind of, you know, they can be just really soul-crushing, long marathon days, you know, if you go to these conferences. So the more interesting and varied the format and the more interaction involved, I think the higher the energy level will be throughout the event.
I once did a session where it was, it was a full day event for an organization, a nonprofit, and I was like, you know, I don't want to get up there and lecture, so I said, just put me on a chair in the front and say, you know, ask Riva. And for an hour and a half, that's all it was. It was questions and answers and dialogue. And I always encourage people in the audience, if they have an answer to what the question was, you chime it in. It's not just all about me giving the answers. And there was literally, you know, it took like 5 minutes for people to warm up. But so there was 85 minutes of true back and forth. And I think everybody learned a lot from that session.
That sounds like a session I was at just last week. I was at a conference, and there was a lot of long presentations, and they were high value. But at the end of the first day, someone gave this presentation called "Your Baby is Ugly." And he stood up there, and all he did was say, email me your website. It was a web marketing conference. Email me your website or landing page, and I will critique it. And that was it. And I thought, oh no, what if no one does this? But I can see on the screen he's refreshing his inbox, and first he had 3, then he had 12. By the end, he had 70 people asking to review their pages, and he just tore into them. It was hilarious. It was Tim Ash from Site Tuners. He's a landing page optimization guy, and it was so funny just how, you know, colors and navigation, and no one cares about that, and what's your goal? No one's going to scroll, and like that movement is taking all of everyone's attention. Like, it was totally refreshing, totally unscripted, and it had this tension in the room of like you just don't know what's going to happen. It kept everybody awake. It was perfect for the end of the day.
That sounds awesome.
It was great. Tim Ash, it's super fun.
Now, once you have this great event together, you put together your topic, you have these wonderful speakers coming, I just wanted to go back to the event page a little bit. How do you get people to your event page? Are there any SEO practices? Andy, if you want to start?
Sure. SEO is something that is a long, slow process. You start early. You want to optimize not just that, but several pages on your site for important topics to this audience. And that's going to create a steady stream of traffic to people coming to learn and read that post about that thing that helps them do something that day. That can often lead to the types of newsletter subscribers and social media activity that will, like we said at the beginning, build up your army before you need it. And so it creates a baseline of traffic and demand and interest on your site that's going to make it much, much easier when it comes time to sign up people for registrations. You can optimize an event page for topic plus event, but in my experience, you're not going to see a ton of traffic even if you rank high for a phrase like that. People just don't necessarily go to Google to search for an event. On the other hand, if you have a lot of, events are time-bound, and social media tends to be really good for that. There's lots of, urgency that comes from tweets, right? They're in streams there's a lot of immediacy. That can be a way to really get the word out. I totally agree with Reba. You got to put it out everywhere in all different ways. And I think you want to leverage the psychology of human psychology of there being a limited number of seats, or a limited time available. So early bird registration creates an excuse for you to talk about this, the urgency and the scarcity of this deadline happening. I just came back from an event that they opened up super early bird registration. Also, if the person registers, you want to give them an easy way through social media, whatever social media channel your audience prefers, every audience is different, to invite other friends, to let people know that they're going. So the loss aversion is a psychological bias we have to want things that are in short supply, and the conformity bias is a psychological predisposition to doing things other people do. Event organizers can take advantage of both of those kind of neuromarketing tricks by making sure that you emphasize there's only this many seats left, tickets only last this long, early bird is ending this soon, create lots of deadlines and excuses to talk about in social media, the scarcity, and then also let people try to get that that hashtag and those conversations to happen, and let other people know like that that their friends are going. Those are ways to sell tickets much faster.
I also think and I don't know about SEO, but I think it's important when you're on social media to not just broadcast the invitation, not just say, hey, come to our event and go away. I mean, I think social media is bad when you use it in broadcast mode anyway, but when it comes to events, a lot of people do this. And instead, I mean, you should have your share of broadcast messages, but I think you should get out there and actually talk to people who follow you, some of your followers, and actually talk about the event. Say, oh, I hope you can really make our event. We have, Joe who's going to really help you increase your marketing knowledge or something like that, where you're actually having a conversation invitation, and those are more likely people to, I think, pass them on to their friends and colleagues, and other people are more apt to see them and click on that because they don't immediately dismiss it as an advertisement.
I agree. I would also say that if you're the people who are going to be contributing to the event, the other speakers and presenters, those should be allies in promotion. I wouldn't choose them just because they have big social followings or because they're influential or they have an audience that you're pitching to, but you should find little excuses to collaborate with them on content. So you've got a keynote, great. Let's do an email interview with that keynote 3 weeks before and post that on the site. Share the best quotes and the juiciest tidbits from that, as little images and memes on social media. So you want to keep looking for ways to create a little echo chamber where you're collaborating with all the contributors, people who've already signed up, by making shareable bits of content that can be posted everywhere, both on your site, on their sites, on association sites, new media websites, anywhere that that the audience, the potential attendees, might be present.
Thank you, Reva and Nancy. Before I get to the next question, I just want to remind our viewers that if you have any comments or questions for our guests, if you can please tweet them using the hashtag ProfNet Hangout. Now that we've been discussing using social media to promote your event, I wanted to talk a little bit about how you can use your website or even your company's resources. Can you work with certain departments and ask them to promote, whether it's your sales department or PR department? Do you have any recommendations for that? Reva, if you'd like to start.
Yeah, again, I think you should deploy everybody. I think events take everybody's participation in doing that. But understand that depending on where that message comes from is how it's going to be perceived by a lot of people. If they're invited by the sales department, in their brain, they're going to be sold something. It's not necessarily for their benefit, or it might be, but they have this sort of understanding that they might have to write a check or sign up for something. If it comes from people who, maybe people who are customer fronting, or depending, I come from the world of magazines editorial, and I always think of, well, there's ads and there's editorial. If it comes from the equivalent of an editor type, they're going to feel that's where the relationship is. That's where the trust is. That's where they think someone is just going to share the information with no expectation that something else is required of you. So you have to identify the people in your organization who, that's the reputation that they have. That's how people perceive them, and let them do the bulk of the gathering of the invitees.
I agree, and that said, if depending on the type of business you're in, and if you're pitching, like, we're a B2B service company, so we have a low volume of high value connections, right? We don't need millions of people to hire us. We just need a small number of people to do something that has a relatively large, expense with it. So, for an event for us, we might have 80% fans and 15% clients, but that last 5%, if you can get the right people in the room, the value is there. That might be the best part, and you'd have to be that sort of editorial, trust-based, we're sharing value with you approach. But if you can get some of the prospects, some of the people at the bottom of your funnel in the room, networking and sharing stories with your brand evangelists, that is one of the highest value, one of the best reasons to have events, is to mix together in a social and mutually beneficial setting the people who love you and the people who almost love you. Connect those dots. It's really, really high value.
Andy brought up a really valuable point also. Don't go for volume. You don't necessarily want to attract as many people as you can possibly put in a room. It's the people who are going to be able to do something, who are going to be able to act on it, who are going to be able to appreciate what you're offering. It's sort of like television, right? There's the mass audience and then the demos. And they're more interested in people coming in at the demos because they think those are the people who are spending. And I don't know that that's necessarily true anymore, but still, that's the psychology of it. So concentrate on the like Andy calls them, the high value people, the people who are not only going to come in and benefit and maybe then do more business with you, but who also are going to share that with people in their own company or with other colleagues as well.
It's a good reason to do events for a lot of companies. It's and sometimes those people, those really high value contacts, they might be influencers or they might be prospects. They may be, if appropriate, those could be people to collaborate with. They might be someone who could be on a panel. There's another cognitive bias, reciprocity. If you have collaborated with someone on something that was successful, you formed a much stronger connection, and that can lead to all kinds of good things down the road.
Definitely.
You both discussed using your social media networks to promote events. And I wanted to talk a little bit more about that. Should you maybe create a hashtag or start a group? Any suggestions that you may have to use social media a little bit more? Reva, if you'd like to start?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm a big believer in hashtags, but yeah, I'd be really curious what your reaction to this is. So I'm reviewing a product for a tech company, and I asked the guy, I said, so what's the hashtag? Because I want to tweet about it. I'm really enjoying this product. And he said, Twitter told us there's a hashtag glut. There's too many hashtags, so don't use it. And I said, okay, but that makes absolutely no sense to me at all. Just none. I mean, even if using the name of their product would make a little bit more sense. So I think part of the problem is hashtags can be a great way that a lot of people get very creative and make up their own. And so I think you need to create a hashtag for this event and make sure that everybody is on board with that hashtag, and not to add in silly ones, you know, of their own, which it may be clever, but here you're really focused on trying to invite people in. I think once you get closer to the event, you can maybe get a little bit more creative in those hashtags, but I think a hashtag really works. LinkedIn, I think, has made a lot of progress in really reaching out to people, actually reaching more people. So if you are a member of any LinkedIn groups, or even if you're not, look at the groups on LinkedIn that might be interested in attending your event and go in there, and again, don't just advertise the event. Go in there, start talking to people, and then talk about the event and say, hey, you know what, we're, you know, kind of answer a question and say, if you want more about that, we're having an event, you know, on November 4th, you know, we'd love for you to come, that kind of thing. Again, the more personal you can be, the better.
I agree, and I had the same thought about hashtags. I think events are one of the best uses of hashtags, because for people that didn't go, they can watch the stream through the hashtags. It's one of the top reasons people use hashtags. And I think there's like a lot of just weird people making up strange hashtags, and there might be a hashtag glut. I don't disagree with that at all, but I think it'd be crazy to have an event without a hashtag. And then I'm going to state an opinion here, and anyone can disagree. I really don't see any reason to put a year in the event hashtag. So many, like there's huge events going on right now, right? Like HubSpot's doing inbound, and the hashtag is inbound 14. Why the 14? You know, you don't really. What's the point? It's inbound. You know, it's already trending. Like the hashtag is trending. Just keep your hashtag simple. No one's ever going to have to wonder what it is. People aren't going to have to try using different things. And hopefully your event isn't a one-time thing. It's a series, and you can reuse that hashtag again next year. You can even try to keep the hashtag alive a little bit between events. You maybe do a Twitter chat, or you know, do different Hangouts, or you know, different activities on, you know, in social media, trying to, you know, keep the conversation going a little bit. But I would never do an event without a hashtag, and I don't see a point in putting the year or any date or number into the hashtag itself. I just don't get that.
I agree. I was at an event last year, also last week, which was, you know, blah 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 14, and I'm like, why do I have to keep remembering the 14? What's the point? And then the thing is, if depending on what kind of event you are, if people want to search on the history of it, you're limiting it to that short period of time where you started promoting this event. So maybe 2 months before to 2 weeks after, and that's all they're going to find, rather than find the richness of everything your company does using that hashtag.
I agree. I wonder if we'd get any comments, or if anyone's going to disagree with us on social media.
I know, it would be interesting.
I'm all ears. Even I think that you should not put your year or any date or number in your hashtag. So if anyone out there has got a contrary view, or they want to point out some benefit we're missing, hey, I'm wide open to new ideas.
Yeah, I agree.
I'll be checking our ProfNet Hangout hashtag. Now, besides using a hashtag, there's some great ways to keep your audience engaged during the event. Would one of the ways be live tweeting, or maybe even having some type of contest during the meeting or the event? Andy, if you'd like to start.
Sure. I think that a lot of times when these ideas come up, it's when you're looking for ways to give more value to sponsors. And a lot of the contests that I see are connected to some kind of sponsor activity where you're doing something in a way to collect email addresses that the sponsor can take with them after the event. I think that's really common. The goal in those cases is not to increase engagement. It's not to drive more value to attendees. So it's less interesting to me. I think the ideas that I love are the ones that get people to interact with each other at events. You know, the things where the event schedule lends itself to lots of interaction and meeting people outside between the sessions is a good way to do it. I think that it's good to extend the life of the event by maybe having a little get-together for whoever happens to be around the night before, a follow-up event, maybe a workshop or something the day after. Anything that kind of gives people more that they can do to stay engaged. But sure, you want to give a shout out to and give support to anyone who's there doing live tweeting. You want to lend assets to, give images to anyone who's there that's live blogging. So part of it is just letting it have a life of its own and supporting the people that are giving it bigger reach and increasing interaction between attendees in ways that they choose to do themselves. But you have to give them space to do that, I think.
I think it's also useful if you do have people live tweeting the event, make sure you have staff people retweeting their tweets, right? So they realize that you think that they're valuable, that they're helping you, that you care about what they're saying. And it's not a bad idea to have a staff person actually tweeting the event themselves so everybody else can retweet them. Because sometimes, you know, there's that fine line at an event where you're there and you're trying to listen and then you're trying to compose your tweet and then you're not listening. So you may have missed something in between. So if you have staff who are tweeting it, that person who did a tweet and missed something maybe really important can go back and go, oh, I want to retweet that because I think, you know, their audience would find it valuable. So I think you have to supplement any social media effort that you're hoping to get from your audience with your own efforts as well.
I agree. There's
I think we may have lost Andy there for a minute. Hopefully we can get him back onto our Hangout. In the meantime, Reva, I wanted to go on and ask you, once you had a successful event and you tweeted, you live tweeted, you had your staff interact with the other attendees, how would you suggest an organization keep the buzz going after the event is complete?
I think once you, at that live event, get people to sign up for a newsletter and you don't want to spam them. You don't even need to talk to them every week. You know, twice a month, once a month is fine, but get them to sign up and say, you know, we learned so much here. We want to keep the connection. You know, again, use those personal words where they don't think that you want them to sign up so they're gonna get a sales message. It's about keeping the connection, sharing ideas, you know, thinking about next year's event. So if you get everybody to kind of opt in with that, hey, we're all in this together kind of attitude, I think that really helps. So I think an e-newsletter is probably one of the easiest ways to do it. And if you want to identify a core group, like maybe 5 people that really in that event really can move the needle to other people, have a Google Hangout with them, have an informal meeting with them like every quarter, just to sort of make them feel really important and really invested in helping you with your next event.
That's really great advice. And I also wanted to get your take on perhaps doing even a recap of the event, and that way it could get shared and other people who weren't able to attend.
Yeah, I think that's really important. You should have, again, a staff person. Somebody should be writing this up. You can put it in blog format. It can be several different parts of it. It can be one overall recap. If it's a big event and you have a lot of sessions, I would do each session separately, because some people are going to be more interested in one than the other, and then just post them on your website and then use them. Think about how you're going to now use social media to promote those posts on your site. So maybe people who've never even heard of your event are going to come in drawn by the topic and say, oh, that's really cool, and then make sure that when you're doing that, if you know, a lot of organizations already know if they do events every year when the next one is. Put some kind of button there where you can say, you know, just put your name down here. You don't want to ask anybody for money or anything, or sign up to be notified when our, you know, about our next event, our event in 2015 or something, and that way you can capture that name and attention then as well.
That's very helpful. I want to see if you have any final tips for our viewers about bringing people to your event before we get to a question that was tweeted to us.
I think that to realize that today, especially with this, you know, preponderance of social media where it's supposedly brought us together, in a lot of cases people feel very isolated. So the events are really good draws. They get to people who maybe have virtual businesses, get to come in and meet other people. So I would make sure that when you talk about the event, that as jam-packed as you want it to be, it's kind of what Andy said earlier, leave time in there for people to get to know one another. You know, one of the things I think that's horrible, and I know everybody likes to have lunchtime speakers, is you put everybody in a big lunchroom. You want everybody to talk, and then the minute they warm up and start talking to one another, they all have to shut up because the speaker's talking. Give people the natural ability to network. Let them do that.
Old school, but always works. Old
Exactly.
School network. I like it. We have a question, and I'm just going to read it to our viewers. It's, how do you recommend marketing to an organization's members already saturated by the advertiser's messaging regarding annual events?
So the sponsors are already inviting them, and I think this is, again, it's part of the one thing you have to realize is event marketing is not event marketing. It's part of relationship building. So if you're only going to communicate with your intended audience right when you're inviting them to an event, they're gonna categorize you the same way they categorize those messages from advertisers. It's just going to fall into one big noise machine. So what you have to do is establish relationships where you talk to them all the time. And so when you then talk about an event, it's like inviting your best friend to a birthday party, right? They're talking to you all the time, but here's a special event that you want them to come share with you. And so I think it's really crucial to make event marketing part of your overall establishment of relationships with your customers. And then make sure that it's not, you know, your sponsors should have different messages. Make sure your message, again, is not about you, it's about helping that person. They're going to get something from this. They're going to learn something. They're going to come out of it with more knowledge to do whatever it is you want them to do.
Thank you so much, Reva. That was really helpful. You provided some really great tips. I'm sorry we lost Andy.
Yeah.
The last part of the Hangout, but it was great having him as well. Thanks again, and I hope you all enjoyed this Hangout.
Thanks, Paulina.